Hello, everybody. It's that time. Turn on your cameras if you want to join the fun, just so I can see some of your faces and know I'm not talking to bots. There's somebody. Hey, how's it going, Dawn? How's it going, Nancy? Everybody, come on. I know there's some more people out there. You guys can be brave. Just one or two more. See some faces. Come on. All right. Hopefully, you'll pop up as we go. So tonight, for a lot of people, is one of those, you know, town halls that. There we go. There's Ashley. Good to see some students representing. This is one of those nights that the agenda is pretty short, but the conversation tends to be long because it's not like the beginning of the process where we have a million things to cover. It's like we're all kind of narrowing down the same cattle herd, corral. And you don't need me to tell you that this year is insert expletive here. It has been a very wild ride. And even I will say today, I got about 8 texts just to my private phone, and the office gets emails about things that even changed today. Students getting accepted off waitlists today, students getting scholarship offers today. So there are things that are continuously in flux, and it's going to be continuing, I hate to say it, after May 1st. So the question is, where are we now? How do we deal with things still being in flux? How do we deal with the fact that the UCs basically did, completely turned over the whole system and how they accept people? How do we deal with other options, like maybe it's doing a transition path or a transfer or gap year? How do we deal with double depositing? So all those things are what we're going to be talking about today. Um, I did kind of, here, let me just kind of show the general outline of where we're going to go today. So we are currently in the intro phase, and then we are going to be talking about, outstanding wait lists, double depositing, reaching out to financial aid offices. And then this is kind of more kind of pragmatic stuff that we got to discuss. And then over here, when we talk about making the final decision, I've been having for decades conversations about which school after students have been accepted, and they're kind of weighing it out. Last year was very different because a lot of students had not seen a lot of the colleges that they were kind of weighing between. So it was more abstract and we had to kind of dig deeper on other levels. This year, I think students are visiting a lot of those schools, but they still may have a school that's still in their top running that they have yet to visit. Some students have visited their schools, but then it's a financial element that they can't piece together and how to kind of make it work or not work. So there's lots of different kind of, as we say, pieces that are at play here. But let's just start out with the first kind of more pragmatic aspects, the upcoming decision day. So out of curiosity, has anyone had their college extend the decision date, like make it June 1st instead of May 1st? Okay, so no one I can see is saying yes. So last year they started to do that because some students were getting a little bit squirrely with the delays, but it sounds like the colleges are just going through with their standard May 1st because I have yet to hear of any yet. So this leaves a couple of different types of situations. The first situation, let's just go through them quickly in short order. The first situation is you have a pretty clear winner of which school you want. You've committed to that school and things are starting to move forward. You're getting information about housing. You're getting information about orientation, possibly, in the future. You're getting information about potentially picking a roommate. So all that stuff is going. Everyone else who is not in that situation on the calls like, grr to those people that are in that position. Then the next position is where you have a wait list outstanding. Um, I've been saying this and I'll say it again, and I don't mean to raise expectations, but if you're still on a wait list, that's a good thing. Students who are on wait lists and who have been dropped already, that's a bad thing. They're not going to hold you if you're not still in contention. So it doesn't mean that you're going to get the spot, but it means that the spots have been, the number of people have been winnowed down to a much smaller pool than it was when we had this town hall 3 or 4 weeks ago. So if you're still on a wait list, and I mentioned this to a couple of people last week, and they popped off the wait list in the last 3 or 4 days. So the wait list that kind of extends beyond May 1st, they're looking for their yield. And that means that if not as many students accept University of Michigan, or not as many students accept Boston College, or whatever college that they're talking about, more spots will open up. Then after that, there will be another opening of students who um, double deposited and withdrew the deposit to that school. So that means that more spots will open up. So there are, I don't want to say a lot of spots left, but there are still spots, and wait lists are still in play. So if you're on a wait list, the first thing you want to do is make sure you're not like ignoring that as a possibility if it comes in. Because I have students that have a first and second choice school, they're going ahead with it, and then we'll kind of talk and I'll say, what about that waitlist school? They're like, oh well, I'm not really thinking about that because it's not coming in. I said, well, if you don't think about it and it does come in, you're going to be upside down. So wait lists that I always say, let's look at the schools that you're really vying between and the waitlist schools, and really just treat them as equals, with a caveat that the waitlist may not come through. So when we're in these positions, obviously comes the term double depositing, which a lot of people have questions about. Um, if you go online and you Google double depositing, all you see is unethical, they'll rescind your offer, all these things happen. Do yourself a favor, try to go further and see if you can ever find a student that has actually had their offer rescinded. I haven't been able to. I've been doing this 20 years. I've never had a student even have a college even comment if they double deposited. I'm not saying, this is not me saying, double deposit until July, and then, or triple deposit until July, and then kind of withdraw on the schools that you didn't get accepted to. I mean, that you don't want to go to, and everything will be okay. But I'm just saying that if you need time, especially with a wait list, if you deposit on a school, let's say, I'm just going to use school names because it's easier than just saying school A, school B. Let's say I am currently accepted to Marquette University, and I'm waiting on a wait list from University of Texas. So it is very common for me to accept the wait list. I mean, commit to Marquette. And then if I get accepted to UT, say, hey, Marquette, sorry, I've decided to go to UT. And they will likely say, well, sorry, we're keeping your deposit. Good luck. And then they let someone know off the wait list. That's how the kind of whole merry-go-round goes. Some students are in the situation now where it's not a waitlist situation. It could be a financial decision where they are trying to reach out to financial aid office and they're trying to say, hi, you guys gave me this amount of money, or you didn't give me any money. I really need to get a little bit more. Is this a possibility? We've had some students get some money. We've had some schools say no. This is always the way that situation is. Colleges don't give everybody who asks for money more money. They have to have kind of almost a reason to do it, like they don't want to lose you, or that there was a range that they were like dealing with, or if it's merit aid. I mean, if it's need-based aid, they might be able to recalculate if something happened, like if someone lost a job, if a company went bankrupt, or something, you lost your house, or so those drastic situations. But if you are double depositing simply because you need more time to think things through, sometimes you just you know I've had conversations all week with students that are just like, I don't know, is it this one or that one? And they go back and forth between the schools. And in that situation, we really try to encourage students to try to figure that out by May 1st. Don't just double deposit because you can. we really like to use that as a, you know, need-based situation. For example, I'm going to double deposit on Wisconsin and Indiana because I haven't had a chance to visit either of them. I think I want to go to Wisconsin, but I want to go visit the campuses. I can't go now because I have, tests coming up. And so I'm going to double deposit on both these schools, and then I'm going to fly out to them, see which one I like better, and then make my decision then. So that's another reason to double deposit. So what you'll read online is they will say stuff like, if you double deposit, all the colleges talk to each other. So they're going to say, Ashley Ward double deposited? No way. And then they're going to call the other school and go, did she do it with you too? Yeah, we're getting rid of Ashley Ward. It doesn't, colleges don't have time for that, everybody. Let's be honest. They're not going to be calling around. And second of all, the school that you, like say you double deposit to two schools and you say no to this school and you go to this school, is this school going to rescind your offer because you said no to the other school? No, the school that you left is the one that's going to be kind of a little bit bummed, and they have zero power. Are they going to call the other school and go, hey, use your name again, Ashley, because it's fun. Hey, Ashley was, like really mean to us, like we don't want you to have her anymore. Well, yeah, we don't want Ashley anymore either. So just looking at the practical kind of gears of how this works, double depositing really doesn't, even on the ostensible surface level, kind of seem like something where colleges will be, um, you know, retaliating against people. Additionally, double deposits, if you think about it, are a cash cow for colleges. They're just making money. Like they don't have to put anything out, and they're collecting 200, 400, 350 from all people. So say 3,000 people do that, you know, $400 each, I mean, that's maybe like a semester of tuition. But it's not a huge amount, but the schools aren't gonna be angry at it. So the main thing is, and this is why you have schools telling you that you won't find out about wait lists potentially until June or July. It's because they're predicting that there is going to be some yield that isn't going to come through. They are predicting that some people have double deposited and are going to withdraw. Or else, why else would they be having you wait until July or June, at least as a kind of proclamation? So again, I want to be safe because I don't want everyone to do things that put them in harm's way. So, you can always double deposit before May 1st. And as of yet, I've never had anyone get penalized for double depositing after that. But I do want to make everyone just aware that there's stuff online that says it. But again, I can never find a single person who's ever actually, you're on Reddit, everybody on Reddit's like, and everyone's like all bouncing around like popcorn. But then you actually try to find anyone that actually can speak from, experience, and it's, zero that I can find. So that's double depositing. Before I move out of that, because I know there are specific situations, I just want to ask right now, does anyone have a double depositing situation or question that they want to just throw out right now before we go into the open end, part of it where we just kind of have open questions? Just unmute microphone if you do, as I sip a little energy drink, all organic. Is that a Nancy? Were you? Oh, I thought you were going for your microphone there. You just did the head fake. So, all right. So, the next thing is we are talking about reaching out to financial aid offices. So, what does this mean? In the last 72 hours, I've spoken to a number of people that have reached out to financial aid offices. They send an email that says something along the lines of, hello, this is my situation. I'm really hoping to get a little bit more money. If you have a comparison situation, like another school that's offered you money, especially if that school is of equal caliber to the school that you're vying with, you can reach out that way to directly to the financial aid office and see if they kind of come up with anything more. Your job in that letter is also to remind them about why you're a great candidate. Was it test scores? Was it great grades? Was it something about the program that you think to contribute? We do encourage students to be the ones that go forward with this, but a lot of parents will follow up with a phone call. I've had parents go to campuses and meet with financial aid representatives, and sometimes I know, because I've had this situation happen, a couple of times in the last few days, students have already committed to a college and then decided that they want to reach out for financial aid after that commitment. And the question is that a game over? Not necessarily, because I can see one of my friends that I was talking to today got a scholarship offer yesterday. And that changes her situation after she's been admitted to the other school. So, or after she's committed to the other school. So essentially, if you've already committed to the school, you can let them know that another college has either reached out to you with a scholarship offer, or your parents are having like buyer's remorse, concerns, worries about it, and you're maybe going to deposit to two schools. Ultimately, you're just letting them know that money could be a deal breaker in this situation, and any little bit would help. If you need, another pair of eyes, we can be those pairs of eyes. If you are simply reaching out to a school and saying, I want more money, and I'm not giving you a reason, I'm not giving you another school that we're comparing to, I'm not telling you that my FAFSA was miscalculated, I'm not telling you that, anything except the fact that I want more money, those are usually not very successful. I'll be honest, pre-COVID, these were a lot more successful. Last year, I think that almost no schools came forward with extra money. This year, we have heard already, I would say about under a dozen, but pretty close. Um, and, some students are still waiting on appeals, which are still in the works. Some students are still waiting for financial aid. Having done this as many years as I have, I will say that sometimes it feels like there's a really long time between March and May, and it feels like students have a lot of breathing room. And by the time we reach May, it feels almost as though, come on, dude, you haven't figured out which school you want yet? Is this just like you don't know what to order at the restaurant, so you just get indecision and everyone else at the table is like tapping their fork? Or is it that type of situation? Or is it the type of situation that everything's moved so quickly and you can't process it? Like wait lists, appeals, late coming scholarships, um, not being able to visit because of COVID or the campus was shut down. All those things have honestly made March to May, even for me, where this is not new, feel accelerated. So I can't even imagine how it is for people where this is all new. It must feel like every single day waking up, you're like in like the wind of a like turbine, like just things are flying past you. So I do not believe that colleges have any reason to kind of grunt about families double depositing, just because it's like, we all know this. It's a huge financial commitment. Um, it's a huge emotional commitment for parents and children. So if any school is really kind of just busting your chops, I think there's a really easy way to kind of push back on them. But I don't even think we'll have to get into that. I think everyone is in the same boat. Everyone knows what's going on. Um, so what questions might a student have or parent have about anything that is related to double depositing, timelines of appeals, which appeals are usually a faster turnaround. Some schools have been downright snotty about appeals. They've just said things that are like, don't even try it. Like, it's like when you go to like a parking lot and it says, don't even think of parking here. It's like they almost have like a sign, it's like, don't even think of appealing here. And you still, I still encourage people if they think they have a case to appeal. Some people will still even appeal after they get bounced off the wait list, so because if you get bounced off the wait list, you can still appeal. It doesn't mean that you are undoubtedly, you can be like, hey, I was on the wait list for 6 weeks. The school was always my top choice. My numbers were great. I know that I didn't make the final cut, but I am asking for one last reexamination. I I just have had too many students go through this process and kind of fight their way to the end and kind of scrounge up a couple more options if that's what they were looking for. But I know I just hit a bunch of different things there, but what questions might anyone have about anything I've just said or anything I didn't say? Anybody? You guys are quiet tonight. Everyone's
God,
just,
I'm driving, so I'm not on video, but I just wondered if you do get off the wait list, how much time do they usually give you to respond, to accept?
60 minutes.
Ah,
Don't go off the road. I'm just kidding.
yeah.
They usually give you, a suitable amount of time. Like it's not like it's they. Gosh, every school is going to be different, but it's usually like at least 2 weeks you would have. Um, and that's one of the reasons. And if that feels short, then we're not really doing enough pre-thinking, where we have our kind of thoughts in place when we do get off the wait list. Um, but like I think everybody should have a hierarchy and an understanding of what to do almost within the hour after. I mean, I was being facetious saying 60 minutes, but almost within the hour you should be having a sense of what you want to do because of all the thinking you've been doing ahead. If you haven't visited a waitlist school and it goes past May 1st, I would recommend a family going to visit that waitlist school. um, Not saying that everyone that remains on a wait list after May 1st gets in, but the numbers are slightly increasing as opposed to they were 3 weeks ago. It just keeps increasing. Again, you're going to get to the end, and if you don't get enough wait lists, you're going to be like, "Damn, Scott!" But it does happen where we do see that those students who survive that long are in a better position. So at that point, you really need to start kind of taking it seriously if you haven't already and going to visit some of those schools and doing the legwork that you need to do. That might mean, and I've really been impressed by a lot of our students so far, to be honest with you. A lot of students have reached out to well, let me give a broad-based statement about students first. Um, the first thing is I'm really impressed with how mature so many students have been this year. I've really watched them handle, we talk about, I talk about epidemics, the waitlist epidemic, the UC epidemic. Obviously I'm kind of being sarcastic here, but um, I told you I've had insomnia from like just staring at the ceiling, just thinking about it because I have all of our little blue trainer chickadees. There's like 240 of you guys that we oversaw this year, maybe more, and I just know how many people have just felt the reckoning of this really oddball year. Um, I also know that probably more so than anyone realizes that 99.9% of you guys are going to be perfectly fine. Um, so often when things go south for a student and they go to one school over another and they think like, oh, this name of that school isn't as good as that school. I Now my face is starting to smile because I can think about all the times that we've done the college list building where we do it in person. We bring in students to do a panel, and on that panel, I always say, usually like 15 to 25 students up there, and I'll say something like, how many students did not get accepted to their first choice schools? And probably like half or 60 70% raise their hand. And I go, how many people are happy with the school they're at? Almost every single hand on the panel goes up, except for one pouty face. And then I say, why? And so many times, like students will say words like a blessing in disguise. I can't believe it worked out this way. I wouldn't change it if I could go back in time. You hear that again and again, and it's for a couple of reasons. One, they found a school that really was a great school in most cases, beyond a doubt. Second of all, they made friends there. Third of all, they realize that the students at the school that they're at are amazing people also, and they don't feel like, oh, I'm I'm with the idiots. Like they're with great students and they love those students, and then they start to kind of like realize all these different things about the school. When I have transfers, I will I will bet on this. The majority of transfers that we have are not at a student's second choice or third choice schools. They're at a student's first choice schools. They're the dream schools that didn't deliver. They're like, I thought I was going to go to, you know, Northeastern or BU, or like I'm not picking on any schools. I love those schools, but it wasn't what I expected. And now I want to go to USC, or I want to go to whatever school it is. So it's not that a student goes to, you know, whatever school was second or third on the list, and they go like, oh, it's, it's not what I wanted. It's usually like, oh, I found a great home here. So this is the reason why it's so important for us to really think about what we want in a school. And this is kind of like the part that I want to like kind of like, slow it down and talk about. Um, some students and parents, when I get on with them, all they talk about is ROI, return on investment. Where will I be able to get a degree that will generate the most income? And I'm talking like a robot because I feel like that's very like how their brains think. It's very linear. And that's okay, because college is a place that we go to make money and have a life of liberties and, and luxuries and passions and all that stuff. But college is so much more than that. That is very like, I don't want to say a minimal part, but I'll even talk about the return on investment with like, like the dad who comes in with like his accountant calculator and he's saying, like that. And then we start going through it. I'm like, you're talking about starting salary, aren't you? He's like, yeah. I go, do you look at those students 5 years, 10 years after they graduate, like, and how their salaries grow there? Because we all know engineers are going to make the most at a starting salary. But then you look at salespeople 5 or 10 years later, they may be surpassing. Like the way to look at return on investment is really difficult. And if people actually go and they look at, how much money is the average person coming out of, University of Oregon making versus the person out of, Cal Poly SLO making, and they try to make that as starting salaries as their reason for choosing a school, that is probably not the best way to do that. So I would really be careful of that. You can certainly, because I always tell people like, look, my kids that go to San Diego State, they make a lot of money at the end of the day. My kids that go to Boulder, like all these kids that go in and they scrap and they are in the business program, like they make a lot of money. But if you look at the starting salaries in those schools, those aren't going to compare to like some of the other schools that you see, like a Michigan or like, like a Berkeley or something like that. But at the end of the day, it's who you are. And I hate to kind of say that so bluntly, but it really is. And I had a kid named Richard who went to Princeton for a year, and he called me up and he goes, I want out. I go, what? Who wants? He's like, what? I'll take his space. He's like, I don't like the people here. I don't like the environment. I don't like anything about it. He goes, I will graduate a less confident person than I came in. And he's like, I don't know what to do. He goes, everyone I know thinks I'm crazy because I want to go back to Santa Monica City. He's like, I'm not. He goes, I'll go to another school on the East Coast. I just don't want this school. And so we had a long conversation about it. And I was really proud of this kid. And I said, well, what about it was it? He goes, well, and he had all of his list of reasons. And when we actually talked about it, he said that he wanted to go to a school that when he woke up in the morning, he felt good about himself. When he graduated and walked out into the job force, he felt good about himself. Um, you know, then the next thing that people think about is, how is the school going to help me with my ability to get a job, right? They're like, you know, is University of Alabama going to deliver me a job, like a new Ferrari in my driveway with a big bow on it? No, it doesn't happen that way. It happens, like we talk about three types of, you guys may have heard me use these terms before, uh, lagger, wanderer, and sprinter. Okay, those are the three ways we break down people that go to college. A lagger, and it's not the nicest word, but it's somebody who just either takes like 5 to 8 years to go through college. They maybe don't graduate. They're just it's the lagger, right? Then they have the wanderer. I'm the wanderer. The wanderer graduates in a normal amount of time, but then like goes across country and hikes mountain ranges. Everyone thinks you're a serial killer for a couple of years and you don't know what you're doing. You tell everyone you're writing a novel, and then you kind of live in a couple of different places. You wander and then you find your path and you become something, right? Hopefully. And then there's the sprinter. The sprinters are the ones that kind of graduate and pretty much have their starting salary akin to what they were expecting. They get a job, they're moving up the chain pretty quickly. And if you look at the difference between a lagger and a sprinter, a wanderer and a sprinter, the number one thing is something that you can do at every single school: internships. That's the number one difference between who gets jobs quicker post graduation. So, and you can get internships with or without the help of your school. A lot of schools will have student services, career services, where you go down, you say, I'm a Wolverine. Where can I get the network and build off that? And they'll give you avenues. But then you can also reach out to, you know, companies in your hometown or wherever you want to go, and do it that way. So, uh, obviously, your education is important, but then also your ability to do what I call lily pad jumping. Lily pad jumping is jumping into a major, deciding if you like it or not, doing an internship, deciding if you like it or not, maybe switching your major or keeping your major, doing another internship. When the parents on this call, who are about the same age as me, because my son is 17, so I'm just kind of throwing us all in the same happy bag together. We all had parents who worked at careers for like an average of like 5 to 20 years. That was kind of the thing. Like the parents will know what I'm talking about, like the get the gold watch, like retire, all that stuff. Um, our generation, the average career, I mean, average amount of time people stay in a job is like between like, I think 3 and 10 years. You guys, the 17-year-olds, the 18-year-olds, it's 2 to 4 years now. So this means that students are jumping job to job a lot more quickly. So it's not only about kind of where you graduate from, it's how you jump around. And the question is, who is a good lily pad jumper? Good lily pad jumpers are the students who actually get fire inside themselves. They know what they're interested in. They're not just going to be passive participants at a job. They're going to realize that they want to pull the ripcord because they want another job. They realize that this doesn't give them the nutrition for their soul that they're looking for, or whatever it might be. So those students jump around. And where does that come from? I will be honest and say that I think a lot of college, and I say this because I learned a lot at those college panels where our students talk very uncensored about things. At the end of it, I always say, to the high school students, I go, you see those college students that just left? They're all like, yeah. I go, how many of them were talking about the academics? And they're like, how many major? What were they mostly talking about? And the students will say, the experience. And if you ask MIT students what their number one most important part of it, it's not the programs. They don't say, it's not the professors, it's the other students. So when we're talking about college, we're thinking about, who do we want to be around? Do we want to be around students who are all work and no play, like Jack Nicholson from The Shining? Or do we want to be around people who are very kind of playful and bouncy and want to kind of, explore different parts of themselves? Um, are Do we want to be around students who all know what they want to be when they grow up? but I don't, Cal Poly Slow, where people are career driven, or a Drexel, or one of those schools, or do I want to go to a school where nobody knows what they want to be, and I'm just discovering myself as they're discovering themselves, as they discover themselves. Um, Obviously, this is different for different majors, pre-meds, engineers, architects, like those students may kind of have to, commit a little bit earlier. But a lot of other students are kind of looking to find themselves at college, and that's partially who they're around. I do say that, if you're going to a small school or a big schools, you're basically going into a city of students. Everybody has different interests, different passions. You will bump into somebody that you vibe with. If you're thinking about small schools, you just have to make sure that those people are your people, because small schools are self-selecting populations. If it's a small Christian school, if it's an extremely politically liberal school, if it's a very nature-oriented school, if it's a very city-oriented school, and it's a small population, I'm not saying everyone's going to, look like clones, but people are more similar in their natures in small schools. So you have to make sure that small schools for you. I just had a student I was helping transfer out of Bucknell, and I said, "Well, what is it about the school?" And she goes, "Everyone gets along, but I don't feel like I'm them." And I was like, she goes, "I want to go to a bigger school where I can find more people like me." And she's hardworking young woman, wants to be in business. There's nothing like out of the box about her. She just didn't fit in with that vibe. So sometimes you look at a school and you don't really know if it's your vibe. I always say, if you go on campus or you watch videos, you do that kind of Terminator auto scan and you're like, who are my people? Could I hang out with them or not? It's also the things that people do for fun while they're at the campus. Are you someone that's going to want to go into the city and see shows? Are you someone that's going to want to go hike? Are you someone that's going to, want to go to the football game and paint their face blue, or whatever they're going to do? All those things make up your life. And we as parents, who are the parents on this call, you want a couple of things for your children. You don't want them to break the bank by going to school. So that we'll talk about that in a moment, the financial element. You don't want them to, or let's say the dues. You want them to come back having found a passion, whether it's the one that they left with their like bag full of new pillowcases and towels and shower caddies, whether it's the same one that they left having in their head that they come back with. I always talk about my student who went to Harvard for pre-med and came back and said, after 4 years, I did that for you, now I'm going to be an architect. Like there are students that kind of switch all the time. 40 to 50% of students change their majors at least once. So we as parents want our children to find something that they can commit to, sustain themselves financially, and be happy every day of their lives doing that. So we're looking for some place where they can find themselves. We're looking for them to be around good people, people that are going to make them challenge themselves, people that are going to make them come back more three-dimensional, more full of passion than when they left. Um, and we also want our children to come back healthy. We want to see that they're not just sitting in their room by themselves, under a fluorescent light. We want to know that they're getting out and engaging with people and, having all those experiences that make them happy. Because I'll talk to parents and I say the same thing all the time. I'll be like, and now, Dawn, I'm going to use your name because I'm just using a name throw it out there. I'd be like, "Hey, Dawn," and I'll just make up a name for your child. I say, "How does Cindy like, her school?" And she'll be like, "Oh my God, she loves it. She comes back and she's so happy." And you hear that a lot, right? And you can tell the parents are also happy because they like how happy their children are. And if you ask the parent, why are they so happy? It's partially, yes, because they like their program, but it's also like the fact that she's able to get into student politics, or she's doing some, programs with a professional group, professional sorority or fraternity. It's also the friends that she makes and the things that they do and the fact that they're making their own network. When some of you guys have heard me talk about this ad nauseum, but I always talk about childhood as being your first snow globe, like that you have in life, and college is your second one. A lot of times these things are totally different seasons, different people, different enclosed worlds. But when we're thinking about a college, it's like, will that experience be something that I can carry for the rest of my life inside me? And will that be kind of like childhood does? Like it's not necessarily Citizen Kane like Rosebud, like remembering the sled, but it is something like where you have a feeling in yourself that college creates in you and you want to bring that forward. And that's why I kind of love schools you know, like Boulder or something like that. Like it's a school that some people are like, oh, that's not, you don't need a 4 point whatever 5 to get in there. But I mean, this year it was a little bit more competitive. But as a college counselor, I think that's a great school that I would put on my son's list because I think that students come back with like a healthy glow. And what I'm always trying to do is I'm trying to encourage entire families to think that way. So this brings in the concept of money. A student can have a school that costs twice as much as another school. And then they tell their child, as they're like white knuckling it, they're like, honey, you can go wherever you want to go. But at the end of the day, we know that's $150,000 difference or whatever it is. And so I say to the student, sometimes the students are like, yeah, my parents don't care. They're totally fine if I go anywhere. I'm like, you don't think that they would like to save, 6 figures? They're like, and the student's like, I don't know, but I like this school better. And I'm like, well, let's pump the brakes for 1 second. Let's pretend that money did matter. And for the majority of families, it very much does. And it is very important to take this seriously. So whether you're someone who the parents have had money laid out for, or you're somebody who is very much like, I need the most cost-effective school, cost-efficient school, so I don't have to, take out a lot of debts. Whatever the situation is, I always try to tell people that this is in your control to make decisions. If you choose San Diego State because it's 1/3 the price of USC, and that's your choice, maybe with all that difference in money, you can value add to the experience at San Diego State. You can then say, all right, I'm going to use that money to travel. I'm going to use that money to, you know, invest in stocks. I'm going to use that money to start in a startup, like whatever it is. Like I can tell stories, I've been telling stories all week of all my students that have done. One of my students chose a full ride over an Ivy so that he could take money and get a down payment for a house. I had another student that, took the money so that they could, buy film equipment. Another one that used the money to travel all around the world to learn about culinary arts. So when you have a lower price school, I think too often, this is the way students' brains work. And I say this with kindness, um, because a lot of times they don't know. They see a school that is ranked 7th, and they see a school that's ranked 70th, and they go, well, of course, if I go to the school that's ranked 7th over the one that's 70th, I'm going to have a lot better life. I'm going to make more money. I'm going to have better friends. I'm going to go to nicer places. And, and well, fortunately, unfortunately, that's not true. Like you could go to this, I don't need to tell you about how many people go to like community college and become successful. And I'm not trying to like deteriorate the importance of high quality schools. I'm trying to show people that there is a certain element of power in choosing a less expensive school and value adding to it, and that is a choice of intelligence. Like the student that took his parents' money and took the full ride and did that, that kid got into Wharton, probably one of the most competitive programs in the nation. Everyone's like, oh, that kid's crazy. How stupid. Why would he do that? I'm like, that kid is so smart that he did that. He went and he saved his money. He, was able to go on a scholarship, um, and able to buy a piece of property, paid for his grad school, still had money left over. And so if you call that kid stupid for saying no to the number one business program and choosing like the number 23rd business program, and he value added to it, I would have a disagreement with you because he's doing great right now, and all of his decisions came out of strength. And I did say this to my little friend who I see her name on here today. We were talking about the difference between making decisions out of strength and making them out of fear. You know, I'll have a student that will say, well, if I don't go to school X, then I won't have a good school um, on my resume and I won't be able to get a job. That's fear. I won't be able to be part of this network. That's fear. If on the other hand, I say, I want to go to the school because they have a great program for this, or I think I'll be able to take advantage of this opportunity there, or I think that the people there are very passionate about their individual pursuits. And there's a lot of those are choices out of strength. So um, I really do encourage students. Sometimes it's hard. Sometimes it's hard to make a decision out of strength. It's easier to make it out of fear because that's who we are. But I also know when students do make a decision out of strength, um, then they tend to feel better about themselves. And this brings up kind of the last thing that I have on the agenda, and then I want to do some of the open questions that people sent, and also just kind of open up like a free for all if people have any thoughts. But um, family communication. You know, like a lot of times I'll do a college decision consultation with a student, and I'll one of the student will say something, and I'll be like, "Have you told your parents that?" And they're like, "No." Oh, I'll be talking to a parent, and they're like, "Yeah, we really can't afford it." I'm like, "Did you tell your daughter that?" And they'll be like, "No." And I'm like, "All right, guys, we need to have these talks like more openly as we approach May 1st. We can't just kind of sit on other sides of an opaque window and just kind of hope that the thoughts cross through it, because it doesn't work that way. I mean, I tend to, in those situations, try to be a third point of the triangle, or we do, I should say. But if you're in a situation where something does need to be discussed, you know what, mom, dad, uh, I really want to get away from California. I love you. I love little sister. I love our dog. I love the fact that you guys are here, but I want to go see what it's like in wherever. Or, um, you know, a student will say, Mom, Dad, I know you guys are offering me the opportunity to go to a school that's more expensive, but I know that it's going to be a burden on the family. And I don't really think that's fair. And, you know, I had a student do that a few years ago. His parents gave him the green light and he reversed course and he said, you know what? No. He's like, I'm going to go to the UC because I think that would be better for the family. And, you know, I get choked up even talking about it because I think that like decisions like that, those decisions, that type of thought process is almost as important as a semester in college. I told my student who did that, I said the day I told my family that I was going to a state school over the expensive one that I got into was a moment that I became closer to, you know, being a man, like a, you know, a grown up, an adult. And I think that when I think that a lot of these conversations are just kind of like said to, you know, husband and wife at night, or if they're not together over the phone, or to the student to their friends or whatever it is, I feel like there's an opportunity that's being missed for people to have genuine conversations. And I think that those genuine conversations will often lead to breakthroughs where everybody feels better about the decision that you're moving towards. Um, yeah, so let me just look at some of these questions that some people had asked. So I have here, oh, where are these questions? Oh, let me see. And while I'm doing this, does anyone have any questions that they just want to unmute their microphone while I kind of find some?
Hey, Scott, the reason why I was asking you about how long you usually have to reply for a waiting list is kind of a weird deal. One of the colleges my son applied to, they sent him a note saying he's on the wait list, but they need to know, like he had been on the wait list for a while, but they need to know
They
if
want a
they,
commitment.
yeah, if we offer it to you, will you accept right away? Or are you still thinking of other schools or do you want to drop off the wait list? mean, he answered honestly and said he's still thinking of other schools, which was maybe the wrong thing to do. But he was like, if they do offer it to me, then tomorrow I'm not ready to say yes, like it was kind of a tough one.
Yeah, is it a school that he really likes?
I mean, it could be. He's very indecisive right now.
Right. Well, if it was a school he really likes, I mean, for anyone else, say
Yeah.
that you're ready to commit. Um, Look, I'm not someone who likes to play games with people's emotions or school's emotions, but I'm telling everybody, I love you. I want to commit to you tomorrow. And then
Yeah.
whoever is like shows up to the wedding, we may get married at that moment. But I think that it's because colleges, and this is the part that I have with the double depositing and all the stuff I see online. Everyone's like, it's unethical to double. I'm like, do you know what colleges are doing? Do you know why they have so many people on wait list? They're doing everything from a purely practical business model on how they can manage their, situation. And they're making people nervous. They're making people upset. All these things are going on. So I'm like, there's no reason why the families and the students should take all that, like, they should get shot with all that, indecisiveness, and then they have to be completely honest. That's a one-way street. No, thank you. I think that I would say that Brock and anyone needs to make sure that if they do have a vested interest, even if they're uncertain, protect that interest. If it's a school he really doesn't care about, then that's one thing. But if it's a school he cares about, then I think everybody should really just, step up and kind of, say things the way they want. Like, and that's why when people write appeals or when they write financial aid letters, we always kind of suggest, say, if you get accepted, you will commit immediately. And then they accept you and you're like, I've had a change of heart. But just, I mean, if you don't want to go, just for that fact alone, if a student says on Tuesday that it's their first choice school, it doesn't mean by Friday it might not be, even and even in truth, because things might change. You might have talked to somebody who told you, "Oh, that school is very for X, Y, and Z," or maybe another school gave you money, or maybe you visited. Like, to say that a school is your first choice, like, really isn't a lie, because it very well could be tied for first with four other schools at this point, you know? But Stephanie, what I would just say is in that case, just make sure that, if it comes up again, to cover all bases and try to gather as many options as possible. I'm always trying to tell everyone to get as many options in the bag as possible and sort through them if and when you can. Um, Here, it says, someone says, what is the best way to contact colleges and let them know I will not be attending their school? Some schools, you just do it through the portal. Some schools, you have to email admissions. Some schools, they'll actually send you an opt-out link. As you go through, you will have it. If you've double deposited, at that point, you can just, email and say, whatever you want to say. Upon further consideration of my family's finances, we've decided to, forego this commitment, and we are officially withdrawing our application. Um, I try to put everything on finances because it seems the easiest, most unemotional way to kind of disconnect from something. Um, if it's like if it's a cat, whatever school it is, you can say that. What else do we have here? It says, is there a way to find out how many students are on a school's wait list? What is the process timeline to move students from the wait list to the accepted? Um, there really isn't a way. I mean, some schools will actually tell you, like a number of years ago, Harvard would say there are now 37 spaces on the wait list. But now that everything's haywire and wait lists are much bigger and things are moving so quickly and everyone's double depositing, they're basically playing a shell game with students' places right now, and they're just moving quickly. So it's really not, and you would drive yourself crazy, knowing that there were like 17 spots and 4 people, like how does that help us? It doesn't really. It just makes us feel like, oh, those other 13 people are probably better than me, or like whatever you're going to think. But at the end of the day, you just need to kind of keep your process moving. If that means putting a deposit down, if that means even, starting, because I've, talked to students who put a deposit down on a school they're not really thinking they're going to end up at, but they just put it down because they're waiting on, one or two or more wait lists, and they're still moving ahead with housing. They're still moving ahead with like the roommate selection process. I've had students make friends with their roommates at school A, and then ditch school A, and then end up going to school B, and then they still keep in touch with the roommate that they got at the school they didn't go to, and they still friends. They even invite them. Like it's a weird set of circumstances, but you do need to keep everything moving, and that means housing, that means roommate. Just in case you end up there, you want to keep everything moving. And the last thing you want to be doing is the last person to deposit on housing, and then end up not getting a spot in housing that you want. Um, Someone asked me, you mentioned hearing students have learned of waitlist in the last week. Is that accepted or declined? I've heard both. I've heard both in the last week. I have heard more accepted in the last week than declined. But if you're, I mean, people don't usually reach out to you immediately when they're declined. To us, we have so many students that, students who tend to kind of have good news come forward sooner, but then we kind of eventually get the truth. But so I would say that you're probably getting some, a handful of declines and a handful of acceptances. But if you're still on after May 1st, you're definitely still in the running. Um, do schools expect you to say no, or do they assume that from you not having filed a notice of intention to attend by the deadline, just want to be polite? Um, you know, One of my students asked if they should let all their schools know they are not going because they've committed somewhere else. I said that's a very good thing to do. I think that helps the process. It's like, getting up on the bus when someone, needs your seat. Essentially, you're telling the schools that I don't need my spot at this school. Please move on and make it available to someone else. If everybody did that, things would move a lot more smoothly. So I would say it's helpful to do that. It says, if we wait to put a deposit until May 1st, there's a chance we won't get housing. No, when we talk about housing, I really worry about the city schools, the San Francisco schools, the New York schools, DePaul and Chicago, like Northeastern, because those schools always have an overflow out of the dorms into the city. So you just have to be careful of those. But if you get it in by May 1st and you've, did everything right, you usually will be okay. The most notable one out of all the schools I can think of, for my little friend Trishy out there, would be San Francisco State, because that school has been known to push some students out of housing into apartments and whatnot. And someone asked me if I've ever heard of anyone getting off the UC waitlist. Absolutely, the UC waitlists are notorious for yield management and letting students in. So if you're still on Santa Cruz, if you're still on Irvine, or still on Berkeley, any of those schools and other ones as well, um, it means that you're very much still in play at this point. I do think that the UCs probably have a little bit of a puffed up understanding of what's going to happen, because they probably accepted students that may not necessarily understand how they're going to pay for it. They may have accepted students that are going through a gap year. So I have a feeling that the UCs are, like I said, about 6 or 7 years ago, all of our students got off the UC waitlist, but that's when the UCs first started doing it. Now it's kind of something they do much more regularly. So I can't say it will be as successful this year, but I do expect that a good number of students will be getting off the wait list. Another person asked, does a dual MBA, Bachelor of Arts, really buy you anything more than a typical BA? you know, where you can do two schools, 2 degrees, you know. Um, well, like the worth of a degree is multi, you know, variable. Um, First of all, it's what do you learn? If I get a degree in, you know, accounting, I know accounting, or at least I should know accounting. If I get a degree in political science, I know political science. So those 2 degrees, like, you know, double the directions that I can go with those degrees. So of course, right there, it is impressive. Second of all, I think that people who do recruiting and hiring are always impressed by a couple of things on a resume. Dual majors are impressive, internships are impressive, and scholarships are impressive. So all those things are, you know, things that you do want to, you know, realize that if you have an option to do a dual degree, and you do a dual major, and it doesn't prevent you from exploration, because one of the biggest issues when you do a dual, you know, we do another town hall closer when you guys leave about warning signs of things to avoid in freshman year, like overstacking your schedule, doing dual majors, and not having enough exploration. But one of the negatives of a dual major is that you may not be able to take as many electives as you might want, because you have so many things that you need to fulfill that at that point you're still might not be sure. But if you already know that I want to do X or Y, and those are the two things you're most, you know, centered on, then a dual degree, you may not need the exploration because of that. It says here, um, UCSB, UCLA, or list just mentioned. Now, so I would say, honestly, the UCs, as much as I like to make forecasts, I can't really tell which UC waitlist is going to, you know, turn out more acceptances than others, just because they all seem like they've been pretty active this year. Um, but I also know how many more students applied this year. So it's really just tricky. I would just, you know, do the best that you can. If you sent in a letter of continued interest, if you opted in, if they ask for anything else, you do it. Essentially, you play the game till the very end, and then you hope that you're you know, invited to go, and then hopefully by that time you have done all the due diligence you need to do to explore. So if it's between UCLA and UC Santa Barbara, or Santa Cruz and Davis, hopefully you've gone and checked those schools out so that you're not just, you know, waiting to, you know, think then. And I know it's hard to think about abstracts seriously because you don't want to set yourself up for a fall. You don't want to be like, "Ooh, I really do want that waitlist school. I visited it, I fell in love with it, but then they're going to tell me no." Like, I get it. I get how that can be nerve-wracking, but I also get that it's important to do that. You know, so I went through the I think there was one more question. Oh, someone asked about international schools. What are your thoughts about for European schools for fall 2020 during COVID? That's a big question. It's like, what do I think about going around the world during COVID? I mean, I do know that Europe isn't doing as well as vaccinations, but I also know that there are some, you know, one thing I noticed is, when COVID first hit, a lot of my students were kind of clinging to home a little bit more, and they were less willing. But I've noticed as things have changed, students are kind of relaxing and kind of feeling more comfortable about going further away again. So I think that's a student to student situation. One thing I didn't mention that I think is important to mention, um, are the concepts of transition paths or gap years or community college situations, because I've had, you know, I have two students that have decided to go to SBCC, Santa Barbara City College, because they can live on campus with the other students, and within, you know, 2 years they'll be going to Santa Barbara. And if it was that option or another school that they really didn't like, that was a good option. Other students are doing Cuesta, which is a transition college that goes into Cal Poly SLO. Some students have been offered the Trojan transition path, where they can go and do a, you know, a semester or a year of community college. You know, Chicago does it. BU offers the general study. So there's all these kind of like quirky little pathways that colleges try to get you to do, where they can tell you, we don't necessarily have room for you right now, but we might have room for you if you are successful in these core classes. And the reason why they do that is because you guys heard of the term freshman retention rate. If a school has a freshman retention rate of 90%, that means that 1 out of every 10 students freshman year leaves. That means 1 out of every 10 spots is now open. So those transition paths are assuming that students will leave or fail out or whatever the situation may be, and then you will be filling in their spots. Are these okay? Last year with COVID, they were brilliant. Students just had to miss freshman first semester of their freshman year, but nobody was on campus anyway. So a lot of these students that did the transition paths actually saved money, and it was like the best of both worlds. They were able to do it, at El Camino the first semester, then transition to spring admit at USC or spring admit at Villanova or wherever they did. So there are those options as well. Um, and then some people ask about doing community college, and like I hate to hear this, like they did everything they could, and the options they're not happy with, so they're like, well, what can I do? Some students will do like a 1 year community college. Some students I've actually talked to have decided that they're going to apply in fall of this year for spring admission starting in 2022, so they're only going to miss 1 semester, but they will actually be getting, so basically between graduation and fall, they might do a community college course or two if they need to up their grades. They may take a standardized test, probably not. They may get a job, they may investigate some of their interests, but then they are going to try to go for a spring admit in spring of 22. And that's because they just didn't have the options that they wanted. And those students are already, like, I've had a couple of calls where students like, okay, what schools will allow spring admits? What's the deadline? And we've kind of gone through that. And that's another option. So at the end of the day, where there's a will, there's a way. That was a rhyme. But what I know we're leaking over time here, but someone untap their mic and ask another question or two before we kind of start making our goodbye noises.
I'll ask you a question, Scott. For the UCs, where you're able to select a roommate or specify a preference, where's the best way to find a roommate online? What's the best forum?
What do you mean? To find out which housing location you want to go to, or the
No, there's a particular UC my son is accepting, and they allow you to specify if you found a roommate who you would, who you want as your roommate. So if he's looking online in a forum or somewhere, where is the best place to look?
Historically, believe it or not, it was Facebook groups. Like they make Facebook groups for a lot of colleges, and then they allow you to kind of like, go through, and they'll say, blah blah blah. Kids will post like in the feed who they are, and they go through. There's also Instagram. Some schools will do it where they actually have, I've been accepted, and they put it on their Instagram feed. So the social media are the first, and sometimes the schools have like a lottery system. Sometimes the schools will have a kind of another matchmaking system. Did they give you any tips on where to look, or was it just like, if you found a roommate, let us know?
They didn't give you tips where to look. It was the latter.
In those situations, I I think that some students like to seek out a roommate, and other students like to have it more randomly selected, because they just want to do it that way, because they're like, what am I looking for? Am I looking for someone that looks like me? Am I looking for someone that, like, what am I looking for? So I think that I would try, I mean, what I would do is I would Google, once you get on here, the class of what, 2025, you see whatever class of 2025 Facebook, and see if there's a group. And sometimes those are private groups, and you just have to tell them your name and you're admitted, and they let you in. Sometimes, so I would try Facebook and Instagram first and foremost. I've seen people do stuff on Reddit, but it all feels weird in the Wild West on that. So I would try those guys first because those are what students are most, unless, I mean, have any students on here had any other, you know, are people doing TikTok dances to kind of get roommates these days? Like, what have we, what have you seen? Ashley, have you seen something? Yeah.
I was going to say, like the best place where I found to find roommates is Zeme, and they usually have a link for each school. And also, if you make a Zeme account, you can follow multiple schools, and then you can say like, I am accepting this school, or I was admitted here, and you'll just send them proof that you were admitted there, and they'll put you in the groups and add you to all the chats, and it's really good. There's like a little quiz that you can take that's a roommate quiz actually,
Yeah.
and it will match you up, so you fill it out and it'll show like your compatibility with other people going to the same school. So I'd recommend that.
Oh,
they
that's
ask you,
great.
like,
Thank you.
yeah, that's fantastic. Do they ask you like, are you an early riser? Are you neat? Or that type of stuff? Do you like to party? What do they ask?
Yeah, so I did it, and I was able to like contact a lot of people, and it asks you like what time you go to sleep, time you wake up, like what's your policy with people coming in the dorm, that kind of stuff, and like how close of friends do you want to be with your roommate or something like that. It has a few questions, and then it's really nice because when you make the account, you put tags of like things you're interested in as well. So then it will kind of match you up with people who have similar interests as you too.
I think that's awesome. Can I just throw like my kind of grumpy old algorithm way too? When I went to college, I know this is gonna sound crazy. I got into a dorm with a kid from the inner city who had a switchblade in his mouth and like flipped it over on his tongue when I first walked in the door. He cursed at me. We became best friends in like 2 weeks. Changed my life. Rooming with somebody so different from me. And actually, I still remember these days. I'm not, of course, I would always love to kind of match with people with similar interests, like movies, music, whatever it might be. Um, but I also don't want people to be afraid to give something up to chance too. Like I think that there is, in all the parents that went to college here survived the kind of random lottery way, and sometimes you get people that are like different from you and they add a spice to your life. So we don't want to necessarily like um, room with the twin from another mother, so to speak. But at the same time, I think Ashley, the ones that you were talking about, like sleeping late or early, you don't want to be the one that studies when so and so is partying. You don't want to be someone sleeping in when someone is like waking up at 6 a.m. You don't want to be someone who's neat and they're a pig, because you do hear a lot of stuff like that. That was pretty graphic.
They did actually ask a question about neatness levels, and they did ask a question about like, what do you like to do on weekends? And one of the options was partying.
Yeah.
So like, it's interesting because they'll show you like, this is what mine looks like, but like
Yeah.
it's roommate, like after I did the quiz, and you can find like people going to your school and you can see what they put in the quiz. But yeah,
Can you chat with them too?
So I'll definitely like put it in the chat.
That's awesome. Can you chat with them too?
Yeah, so I actually I would start like talking to people or be like, "Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm like also looking for a roommate, blah 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 blah." And then like a few people like actually like responded to me and we started talking. So,
That
yeah.
sounds great. Yeah, if you put it in the chat, that would be great. She'll put it in the chat for everyone. Ashley wins the prize for the day. Any other questions that anyone else has before we start to fade out? The Zeme app, Zeemee app. So guys, look, just a couple of things, just a heads up. On May 3rd, I have jury duty for a week. So I'm going to be kind of like, kind of underground, so to speak. The office will be there, other people will be there, but I'm encouraging people who have questions to try to get in touch before May 1st, because the week after if there's something urgent, the only time I'll have will be my drive to and from downtown LA to do jury duty. So hopefully we can chat before then if you have a question. I really do encourage everyone to, be open with the family, take their time, think about all the pluses and minuses that you have, to deal with. And then also, I am hoping that everyone still kind of joins us when we have our upcoming, we'll have one as we move closer to, takeoff time when you guys are all leaving. We give you guys a list of, someone's asking if is it May 1st at 12 a.m. or 11:50 p.m. It should be the full day of May 1st should be, you should have up until 11:59 p.m. on May 1st. But, when we get closer, we're going to encourage people to, we'll give you guys a list of, and you guys probably already have this, a list of things to buy, good shower caddies. Like we kind of have been refining these lists over years, and just some helpful things. I'm sure a lot of you guys will be doing your own stuff, but just because we haven't been working with you guys for a while doesn't mean that we're just like kind of turning our backs on you. So if you have questions right up until the day you leave, we'll be here. But I want to, thank everyone for coming tonight, and let us know if there's anything urgent between now and next Friday. Okay. Let me see if there's the last question. I saw someone come in. Okay, that looks like that's good. All right, thank you for all the nice words everyone's saying. Thank you all, and have a great rest of your night. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Scott.
Thank you,
Scott.
Scott.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.